What is up, Nets fans? Welcome to the Brooklyn Buzz. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Jac Manuell, and we have two special guests. We wanted to bring on some Nets fans, some Nets listeners, Jason Heyward, Zach Murphy. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hey, how you doing?
It's like a United Nations here. We've got the Australians and the United States. This is beautiful, beautiful. Countries coming together. That's what I love.
We got to submit this to the NBA and the Brooklyn Nets. We're helping, connect borders right now. But we wanted to bring on some fans. This is something we've been wanting to do for a while. We love you guys supporting us, listening to the show, and I think it's fair to give everybody a chance to give their takes. Before we get started, as always, quick reminder, like we announced in the last show, we are now part of Nets Republic, that partnership. You'll find our show on there. You also can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Dash Radio, and YouTube. But guys, we want to know how you became Nets fans. How did you start loving the Brooklyn Nets, for the better or the worse?
I'll kick it off. So mine's a bit of a strange story. As a kid, I didn't really know much about basketball, but I wanted to play for my school. This was about 2012, 2011. Just around that time, we had just been to America on a holiday, and we'd been to New York City, and I fell in love with it. And then just as the Brooklyn Nets were starting, everyone was like, well, do you have a basketball team? I didn't have one. And the up-and-coming Nets were a new thing, and couple that with the big-name trades that we made, which I wish we didn't. That's kind of how it started, I guess. And then I fell in love with ISO Joe, funnily enough, and then looked at all the Jason Kidd highlights and just stuck true ever since.
What about you, Jason?
Man, if I go back to my childhood, I grew up reading. I grew up and I loved the Golden State Warriors when I was growing up. Tim Hardaway was and always will be my favorite player.
Nice.
And man, you could catch some games, but mostly reading box scores. And he was like, man, Golden State Warriors are great, and I would see them do well in the playoffs, what have you. But then when I got to college, and after college, my family, we're from Brooklyn, but a lot of them are Knicks fans. I call them the Icks. Put in front of the ICKX, that's up to you. But I call them the Icks. I would go to a lot of games. And I remember my uncle took me to one game, and they played the Utah Jazz. They scored 59 points. Must have been an hour after the game, just sitting there in disbelief, like, are you serious? And I knew I could not support them because I saw how depressed my family was. So I was of a dating age. I would go to Nets games in Jersey at the Continental Airlines Arena. Tickets were cheap, man. You could get like a playoff ticket for $10.
Damn.
And I was like, man. I said, okay. And I liked them. And then one year the finals. And then Lakers knows to be a time. I was already a fan. And then I was like, I'm just going to invest in this team financially. And I was still living in Brooklyn, became a season ticket holder, and I wrote it out, man. From when they were in Jersey, Continental Airlines Arena, Izod Center, when they went to Newark, and finally when they said they were going to Brooklyn, I was like, that's 5 minutes from my house. Please do.
And nothing better than that, too, especially going from traveling from, like you were saying, the Izod Center, Prudential Center, just all those different spots. Being in Brooklyn, it just feels at home and so much better.
Nick, it sounds
Absolutely.
like Jason should have my job. Do you want me to just bugger off for a little bit? Jason become the co-host. I can't compete with that, mate.
5 minutes from the stadium, I might be having to stay at your house a couple nights.
you can stay at my house, but since becoming a season ticket holder, I've gotten married with children, and my wife made me move to Long Island, so it ain't the same anymore.
I can watch the Long Island Nets.
True. But we do got some more questions for you guys. Honestly, always great to hear how people became Nets fans. I think that's important in the journey, and obviously we've all endured some negative things, but hopefully we got some positive things moving forward. But let's talk a little bit about the offseason. What was your favorite move they made this offseason? What really stuck out to you that you just loved it? It doesn't have to be for a rational reason. It could be because you love this player, but what did you really like from the offseason?
Me personally, I think the Ed Davis signing was brilliant.
Yeah,
we signed him
nice.
for $4.4 million, and he was on a $6.6 million deal with Portland, so we somehow got him for cheaper, which is awesome. He proved that he is arguably one of the best backup centers in the league. and that was proven with his stats, and even with Damian Lillard and CJ and stuff expressing how emotional they got when he got traded. It just speaks volumes to him as a veteran. I think that's a huge thing for especially our up-and-coming star, Jarrett Allen. I think that Ed Davis can help out with Jarrett Allen getting him a bit stronger on the glass, bulking up a little bit. And plus, it fills a hole in our rebounding, which we were only average at offensive rebounds with about 9.5 last year. And not to mention, we got killed by interior bigs time in and time out. Not to mention Dwight Howard, that 32 and 30 game.
Don't mention it.
I've heard that way too much over the last month.
That game I remember watching, no one taller than 6'8" played against him. Like, that's just... I understand the small ball revolution, but come on.
We could have had Dwight. Luckily, we didn't. But Jason, you got something similar? You got something different?
Yeah, I have something way different.
Go.
Man, my favorite offseason move was trading Jeremy Lin, man.
Ooh, interesting. Not a fan of the Jeremy Lin stance.
Or maybe, I was going to say the fans.
Man. I mean, it's on and off the court because on the court, he was never on the court. You know, it seemed like a good financial signing when he did it, but his fans off the court, they make it seem like this guy is a Hall of Famer. And
Linsanity, baby.
Right. They're so void of reality in what he really is. I mean, it's like if you have anything to say about Jeremy Lin that isn't making him out to be the greatest ever, it's like you're against him and the Nets.
Yeah.
I mean, it at a certain point, that type of stuff, when they talk about, and that's why I listen to Sean Marks and Coach Atkinson always talk about culture. That stuff gets in the way of the culture.
That's fair.
When you have someone who is so distracting and they're not producing on the court. Like LeBron is distracting, but he produces on the court. So you can understand the distractions that are going to come with it.
Yeah,
dilemma.
Not so much.
It does leave my Nets jersey tee null and void. Another one, Lopez, Jeremy Lin. I'm
scared to buy a D'Angelo Russell jersey for that.
I'm not buying a D'Lo one. I might have to buy like a Kenneth Farid or a Jared or a Teo Pinson one. Maybe even a Mitch Creek if they have them. But
my goodness.
Where Nick and I, for those obviously that are listening, they know that we're cursed. But Nick, hit him with the next question because this is fun.
Next question. So on the negative note, which move did you not like from the offseason? Which one were you like, Sean Marks, why'd you do that? It could be nothing though.
Gosh, that's pretty hard. He's done a stellar job so far. I think that my only criticism, and they're only little, would be I think we could have gotten rid of Dwight Howard for less. I think he could have lessened his buyout money, which would have freed up some cap space to help us just take on another asset, another vet, and get another pick back or something. I think that's the only probably criticism I have, and maybe I know some people are not high on our second round pick this year, but I'm happy with the €2. So that's pretty much it. I think Dwight Howard could have been a little bit more generous in his buyout, but that's
Dwight Howard
Sean Marks
generous. Oh, come on.
Hey, he said he wanted to play for Brooklyn however many years ago.
I know.
Right.
I remember. I think it was on the buzz where we were talking about it. I remember reading like a tweet where someone saw him and he was actually at like a Shake Shack near like Flatbush and Atlantic, and he was like laughing when he saw the news. And then 10 minutes later, we get rid of his bum ass.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that hurt Sean Marks in that, I think Dwight was willing to actually play for the Nets.
Yeah.
I think he was willing to just suit up and be like, if I'll play with you guys. I mean, I think it would have caused the Nets more problems to the locker room because he probably would have been upset if they started Jared Allen or he wasn't getting enough minutes, and we know he doesn't really like to set picks. But Jason, what move did you not really like, or was there anything that stuck out?
Man. I generally love everything. Well, not everything, but I generally love the moves and the quietness of Sean Marks. I think what's stuck out for me, and this is not going to be popular because my sons, man, they love this guy. I'm sure we're gonna come back to this later. I really want them to trade Rondé, man. And the guy getting hurt, and go figure, in Jeremy Lin's charity game. I mean, man, it's come to, and that goes back to what Zach said about us getting killed on the boards last year at Davis signing. I understand you want Rondé to be a small ball 4. He doesn't rebound the ball or defend the position well enough. And so if we're coming on to a time where next summer we may have to pay this guy, that may go down as being one of those Travis Outlaw type deals where you end up giving a guy money that you really can't justify when they get into the contract. And so I would have liked to have seen us flip Rondé for something of value because the guy is an excellent player, but I don't think he's the player that he's gonna get money for.
Still could get flipped. Jimmy Butler's out there, and I definitely agree with the contract status of Rondé. I think it's one of the more intriguing things. We know D'Lo's been getting all the sort of media attention, but I think Rondé's low-key under the radar, a really interesting storyline. I think in terms of defensively, he might have sort of stopped a little bit because we've seen the offensive growth as like a shooter, not a perimeter shooter, but like, as a mid-range shooter. But I think he works best not necessarily as a one-on-one defender, but as like a help defender, as a team defender. And Karis LeVert does as well. I think a lot of our guys, we don't have that one-on-one defender. And I mean, Jimmy Butler might, if he does land with us, so be it. And if Rondé's in that deal, so be it. But Rondé, I mentioned this on the buzz that Nick and I just recorded. He also did just say in the Instagram comments of Jimmy Butler, he's like, come on home to Jimmy. Rondé's definitely a low-key guy that I love. And probably one of my first pieces that I wrote about.
I love him too.
For the Nets on OTG basketball, and one of the sort of my prouder pieces because it's sort of what I developed a little bit. But his status is just fascinating.
Yeah, he's a really
intriguing player. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Zach.
I was saying, such an intriguing player. It's really hard to kind of gauge what he would get on an open market and what his kind of trade value is. And I think throw in with that Jimmy Butler trade, I was thinking, we'll get back to it, but he would be a nice little fit there. I think he's kind of reached his ceiling almost. I think he's a high floor, low ceiling player. The only way I see him improving any more so is if he does develop that three-point shot, which he has been working on, but so far it's been pretty atrocious. But to see his growth from a guy that was purely a defensive-minded player getting drafted to, okay, now you're hitting baseline fadeaways pretty often. I don't know. That's still intriguing to me, but as everyone has mentioned so far, I don't know whether we are going to be the ones to have to pay him, especially when we're looking at bigger targets this free agency.
Yeah. Can I jump back? Can I jump back in now on Rondé?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Because I do love the guy. My thing is, in his contract status intrigues me also. I think back to him talking about advice he got from Kobe, so I always yell at him at the games. you gotta get to the elbow, because that's what Kobe told him. Get to the elbow. The NBA is not the elbow thing. The NBA is not really an elbow game right now.
Not anymore. Yeah.
And that's the thing. When we talk about what kind of contract is he gonna get, every team is gonna have money next summer because the salary cap is going up. They've already announced that. So we made a 2016 thing where, and I'm not, no disrespect to him, but if you compare it to what, I don't know why I just drew a blank. We just traded the guy for Dwight Howard. What he got from the Lakers. Mozgov, yeah. You look at the contract he got or the contract that Luol Deng got, and I'm not saying that Rondé is worse than those guys, but I think he's better than them. There were so many teams that had money, they were giving money out to guys. And so we'll be looking at somebody giving Rondé a contract, and we'll have to say, do we really want to match that? Because everybody's going to have money.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I mean, I think you look to get value, and it kind of makes your life a little easier going into the offseason. You don't have to worry about losing an asset for nothing. If somebody offers Rondé a big deal and you don't want to match it, that's fine. Now you traded him and you get something back, and you kind of just get rid of that horse and you developed him enough. like you guys said, I think the most intriguing thing about Rondé is a 3-point shot. If he were to develop a 3-point shot, it would change, his entire career most likely. And, there's still other things he can polish, but I think that 3-point shot is the deciding factor on where Rondé ends up as a player.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
But moving on from there, we're going to look a little bit forward to next season. Who is your breakout player next year?
So besides the obvious D-Lo, I'm going to try to strain away from that because that seems to be the go-to. I really hope that our breakout player is Jarrett Allen this season. I think he's shown awesome potential and growth throughout this whole season so far. And as a starter, he's averaging about 10.5 points, 6.5 boards, and almost 2 blocks, which is incredible for someone who's just turned 20. He shoots pretty well percentage-wise, 62%, which is awesome for a center. You want an efficient center. And he's shown huge gotten praise from everybody, such as Kenny especially, saying that he's soaking in everything from the veterans and from the coaches. And that's shown because he's gone from just a pure dunker and just wanted to dunk on everybody to now he's showing a little bit more polish around the rim, hitting little hooks, little floaters. And I think that he can just only go upwards from there.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the most exciting pieces on the Nets. And like you've even seen the development for Jared, not only, early in the offseason, but you saw it throughout the entire season and just the development of his game going from being that bench piece coming in to then being a starter and having a big impact on the game. But Jason, who's your breakout player for next year?
I wanted to say Jarrett Allen also, but I'm not going to beat that drum. And I agree with everything you said. Man, I think the world of that young kid. I think if not Jarrett Allen, and if we keep him, I think Caris LeVert, man.
It's my guy.
I think CLV, because when they do the per 40, and when they do those, is it per 40, 48,
per 36? Yeah,
per 36. How similar his numbers is to Andrew Wiggin. He's a guy who can play defense.
Yeah.
He's a guy who's really at this point. I think his first few years, one of the things that stuck out with me about him is a lot of this stuff has been mental with him because he had so many injuries in college. He's gotten over a lot of those injuries. So he's really just consistently playing basketball now. And I think in some of the action that he had last year as a point forward, this guy can actually give us something because we're not asking him to be the guy. I think, and man, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think the guy has an opportunity, depending on if there's a trade or not, but the guy has an opportunity if Coach Atkinson is being fair with everything, he should have a legit opportunity to start at 3.
Yeah.
Because I think he gives us a little bit more than Damari does coming into another year.
I think the reason Kenny likes having Damari on the floor is to have that veteran presence. We saw that even when he started Randy Foye, whenever that was years ago.
The year before, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major draws of starting Carroll, because then on the bench you've got you'd have Carroll, Davis, Fareed, Shabazz, all our vets are on the bench. Dudley, even if you want to throw him in there. And I think it is important to have that one veteran to start on the floor, kind of slow things down if things get a little irrational or turnover prone or whatever. But I definitely do think he would fit better purely just as it is without any veteran presence. I think Karis would be an awesome fit as that 3.
But that's where we disagree, because I don't think if all things are equal and we talk about rebounding, unless Jarrett Allen makes a major leap and is out there grabbing double-digit boards, even though I think he's capable of, I don't think Rondé should be starting at 4. I think Kenneth Faried should be.
It's funny, in 2K he does. I've been playing with the Nets and Kenneth Faried starts. So obviously the ratings on 2K might know something that we don't.
He's a rebounding machine.
Yeah, offensive rebounding wise, I've been putting stuff out. Him and Davis are just notorious top 5, top 10 in offensive rebounding. And even last season where like Kenneth Faried played like 30 games, he's just an absolute monster out there. Depends on, with the spacing, obviously Rondé doesn't give you much. So do you want to give that up in terms of sort of flexibility as a defender and in terms of transition offense and ability to handle the ball a little bit? I think that it'll be interesting lineups going into next season and, throughout the season in terms of how we mix and match against certain lineups.
I'm hoping Karras breaks out. That's my guy. If you guys didn't know, that's my favorite player on the Nets right there. And I mean, I agree with what you said. I think one thing that really, struck home was the fact that he hasn't played a ton of basketball, and just being out there is allowing him to be more confident, feel confident in that foot. And I think there was an interview recently with him at Fashion Week in New York stating how he feels he's going to have a big breakout year. He's put a lot more work in this season, not only actual training, but the way he treats his body, sleeping, eating, and whatnot. I think Karras is due for a big year. And I'm not even that concerned about starting because I'm just concerned about him getting starter minutes. If he's not in the starting lineup, whatever. But I love the versatility he brings offensively, defensively. I think there's plenty of room for improvement. And I think he can be a nice complement to all the guys. And he's just a really nice fit for the new NBA, the way he plays basketball.
Yes.
I agree entirely. And especially with Coach Atkinson, it's not necessarily about who starts, but who finishes. We've seen that time in and time again. D'Lo has an off night. He'll happily pull him off for Spencer or whatever. So we've got we're so deep this year. We've probably got 10 or 11 playable guys that everyone gets minutes. Everybody eats on this team, and it's a good problem to have.
Right.
So as you said, I'm not worried about if he gets that starting role. As you said, starting minutes is what matters.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing about the Nets, and we're not really going to touch on that today, but the fact is they're going to the season with a lot more playable NBA players that have solid careers and respectable players across the league instead of having some of the G League guys or fringe NBA players that are still trying to get in the groove of being an NBA player. But next question for you guys, who's going to be the Nets MVP next season?
I think this one's where we talk about D'Lo, for sure. He's obviously got the highest potential. As we saw before he got injured, he was averaging almost 21.6 assists and 5 boards. Like, that's fringe all-star level. Like, I really see a bright future for him if he manages to stay healthy, knock on wood. He can run the team. He's been so crafty. I just think we need to find a combination of guys that work for him because we've tried him alongside Spencer, and that didn't really go as planned. So I think that's definitely having Crab. He works quite well with Crab, getting him open looks, and obviously pick and roll with Jarrett Allen and maybe lobs to Kenneth Faried now. I think also with his clutch factor is a huge thing. He's hit multiple clutch shots in his career, and even in Brooklyn with his limited time here so far, I know he's done shots against Portland and Orlando, and especially the fact he can get streaky is not it can be a knock on him. He's not consistent, but to have moments like against that Raptors game where he, in the first quarter, hit like 7 threes or something ridiculous. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that got me so excited for him as a player and for the Nets franchise as a future.
For sure. I mean, D'Angelo, I think in the inconsistency comes with being young. So I think that's what makes him so exciting is the flashes there. We saw the early stint. I mean, D'Angelo, I think, is a favorite for most people for MVP and even breakout player. But Jason, who you got?
Let me disagree with Zach, man. I love Russell. I love everybody who's on the team. They on my team, I'm gonna love them. That guy doesn't play enough defense for me, man. I think who our MVP is going to be, and I think he showed his capability towards the end of the season. Allen Crabbe, man.
Ooh.
This guy,
I like that.
if he's used the way he was used and he's playing the way he was playing at the end of the season, that guy should have over 300 3-pointers this year. That's 4 a game.
He's already broken the record, yeah.
So but he broke the record with the low 200s.
Yeah.
That guy should have over 300 3-pointers this year. He gets rebounds. He keeps his hands up on defense, and that guy is coming into his own. Let me give y'all an aside, man. One of my sons, he's 4 now. He told me Allen Crabbe was his favorite player, right? No problem. I got him a custom Allen Crabbe jersey, man. The people who make the Nets jerseys, I found them out in Queens. I bought a couple custom jerseys from off. And I took it to them, and they customized it for me. So I got him a customized Allen Crabbe jersey that people have seen my son at the game wearing, and he's got 4 Allen Crabbe bobbleheads on his dresser, man. Now,
he's invested.
Right. That's no coincidence with my answer, but I think from what we saw from Crabbe at the end of the season, this guy, he can move without the ball. Sometimes he'll pump fake and get a layup. I think we're seeing why Sean Marks gave him the contract initially, and I think that that guy, I really think he's gonna listen. I hope D'Angelo's our MVP. I hope Allen Crabbe. I hope everybody's our MVP. But I think he really has a chance to put up at least 300 3-pointers this year, and really break out like he showed at the end of the season.
Just to quickly jump in, one more. I really do like that Allen Crabbe, and I really, really hope he starts to average maybe 16 points. I think he's capable of that. Definitely.
At least 20.
At least 20. We're going that far. We're committed.
Bang.
But I think one thing that people often overlook is Allen Crabbe was drafted for his defensive capabilities, his long wingspan, his quick footwork. And as you said, we don't necessarily have good one-on-one defenders. I think he showed, especially tail end of the season, even the game against the Bulls at the very end, like he can get hot, and who's going to say no to a player that can get hot and play D?
Yeah. Right. What you want everything to play.
Last year,
it did.
Especially from the season before, I know a lot of talk from him coming from Portland was like, oh, Crabbe's defense is terrible. That whole team played no defense. And then he came here, there were some instances where it wasn't great, but I think by the middle of the season, he was definitely impressing us. And the fact, his 3-point shot wasn't always knocking down, but he was able to impact the game with his defense. I thought that was important. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, he's just so crucial to what Coach Kenny is trying to do with our offensive system. He is the crux of it. Yes, you need the floor general, but I guess if you're going to put a knock on, D'Angelo Russell, it's those turnovers, and you can put in a Spencer Dinwiddie or a Caris LeVert as a sort of floor general, but it's Allen Crabbe that makes everything sing, and then maybe to a lesser extent my boy Joe. But sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. I'll help you out. I'll rep him up a little bit for you. I was going to say Joe Harris is right there too, man.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting though, Nick.
But Jack is pretty spot on, exactly, and it's so important for the offense. I think for Crabbe, one thing you want to look for is just kind of work on some of the smaller things, maybe develop that floater, that inside game a little bit better, just so people can't play him as tightly at that 3-point line. But like he's shown, he can hit those contested threes. But on to the next portion. Do you guys think the Nets will make the playoffs next season? We're not talking 1 seed. We're talking 8 seed, just squeezing in 7 seed. What are your thoughts on the Nets playoffs chances for next year?
I really hope we get into the playoffs next year. I think it'd be an awesome testament to our culture and everything. But realistically, I think we'll just miss out. I'm pinning them at 36 wins, another 8-game improvement from last year, about the 10th seed. But I think if everyone stays healthy, knock on wood, then it's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
What do you got, Jason?
I don't have a win total. I do think they're going to make the playoffs, man.
That's what I want to hear.
Listen, man. You go back to, and this is why I don't take a lot of these predictions that like pundits give too serious, and I like to form my own conclusions. Like even when I watch basketball on TV or sports on TV in general, I watch it on mute, man. So I don't have people thinking for me. I like to think with what I see. And here's why. I'm going to give you a classic example of a team who nobody had pegged for anything last year. Definitely not playoffs. The Indiana Pacers.
Yep.
They ended up the 5 seed. Everybody said they got fleeced in the Paul George trade, and why would they get Victor Oladipo, and he's bounced around from so many things, so nobody looked for them. There's always 1 or 2 teams in the East that surprises people and is able to do what's necessary and stack up wins and get in there. And I think the Nets are going to be one of those teams this year. I think the depth in the NBA sometimes wins you at least 5 games. Because you have those, you may catch a team on a back-to-back. And like we beat OKC last year. and then we beat Minnesota last year, and we had not a good team when we beat them, but you can catch teams on off nights, and I think our depth is going to help. 3-point shooting and continuity is going to help also, because Crab is there shooting, because Joey Buckets is there shooting. I think we're going to surprise teams and take that step from teams, coaches always saying they're a team that plays hard, to we're a team that plays hard and gets more wins and enough wins to get in the playoffs, because there are a lot of bad teams in the East.
Yeah.
And I think we should feed off of them and I think we should. I'm not even going to say the 8th seed, man. I would not be surprised, and maybe this is overly optimistic on my part. I would not be surprised if we got the 7 or the 6 seed.
Nice.
I hope so. I wouldn't be upset about it, so no complaints from me over here. I think one thing that'll definitely help the Nets too this season is all the late game losses, all the clutch situations where they weren't able to capitalize last year. This year they'll have more experience, they'll have more depth, so they'll be better rested as well, and having more veterans around should definitely help with that.
Yeah, but like 12 or 13 deep, it's ridiculous the amount of depth that we have. And you look at Toronto and their sort of bench and how it helped them throughout the regular season. And, they were the number 1 seed. Indiana, like you mentioned there, Jason, their depth, I think we're going to need, jumps from, our young guys to sort of make that next step, like the guys we talked about, Karras, D'Lo, Jared Allen. But it's certainly not out of the realms of possibility. I'm a little more of a... It's odd how like Zach and I have similar thoughts, and it's not just because we're from Australia. We're not one-minded, single-minded people down under. But I think it's sort of that tall poppy syndrome. We want to sort of have low expectations and then be surprised, so then we can savor it a little bit more. We don't want to get disappointed. So I'm buying in, but I'm also buying in with some trepidation.
Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantee.
Absolutely.
I think there's a good situation. There's a lot of positives to look forward to. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some changes on the court with more depth, playing a little bit more intense D, and, maybe a little bit more running in transition, having fresh bodies.
Yeah.
But
right.
Talking, obviously, all the hype over the last 24 hours has been Jimmy Butler. Now, I'll ask you 2 questions on Butler. 1, do you want the Nets to trade for Jimmy Butler?
Only for the right deal. And I think that a deal consisting of like Rondé, throwing Damari and the Denver pick, I think that's about what I'd offer them. If they ask for anything more, I know they were interested in Karras last season. If they're throwing anything like that, I'm going to hang up, because we don't know that he's going to stick around definitely. We don't know that he's going to lure Kyrie in. I think that he is eligible for like some ridiculous contract, like 190 million.
Yeah, 5 years, 190 mil.
Yeah, like I am scared to commit to something of that velocity, and especially that he's 29. You go 29 is fine, but he's an old 29. He's played so many minutes because that damn coach Tom Thibodeau just runs him into the ground. He has averaged, I think, top 5 in minutes the past 7 or 8 seasons. Like, he's exhausted, man, and he didn't even play 75 games last season. I don't know. I'm happy if we get him for a good deal, but I'm also happy if, say, the Clippers pick him up and stick to him and lock themselves in.
What do you think, Jason? You want to make the move for Butler?
You said that was the first part of the question. Is there a second part of the question?
Yeah, the second part I'll ask afterwards.
Okay. Absolutely. Please trade for him.
What would be your best package?
Let me tell you why, though. Because, and this is what I don't get about the Nets fans who say, no, don't trade for him. You can't trade for him. You look at and they always use the Boston example. Billy King's not here anymore. And you can use other examples. Listen, this is the classic example of the person who may have been a star high school athlete, right? And then in college, they gained a bunch of weight. And then now they've lost a little bit of weight. And now females are interested in them again. And they tell Beyonce, you know what? Now I'm not going to date you. I'm going to wait till a better
Full of
pick comes
Joel
along
Embiid.
next year. What? No, you don't do that. If you have a hot chick who says that she's interested in you, you don't say, "No, I'm not interested in you." Also, no, yes, you are. You are interested because you've got to get who you can get and then lure others. And if you can get Jimmy Butler, let me tell you something. And I do agree that Tom Thibodeau has ran him, but he is not a guy who's a high flyer. So I think his game is going to age better than someone who, for example, like a Dominique Wilkins, when you can't jump anymore, what else are you going to do? So I think his game is going to age well because he's not relying on his athleticism like other guys will. Now, will it justify a max contract? No, but I don't think that they have to give him a max contract if he's serious about playing with potentially two other max players. I think that, and I don't, I'm not touching anybody's money, but I think that he would take a few dollars off the top because I think a lot of NBA players at the top level get money under the table anyway. So I don't think he would say, no, you have to give me the major max when Kevin Durant just took less money. If you look back at Miami Heat, a lot of people don't remember Chris Bosh was making the most money on that team.
Yeah.
Not LeBron, not Wade. And they were doing it so that we could fit in with each other and be able to win championships. What deal would I put together? I don't mind that deal of and I've heard and read a lot about Damari and Rondé and Denver's #1 pick. I wouldn't mind that. I also think that I would add something to that. I would add one or two of our Euro stash guys. Juan Pablo Valuet. Maybe they'll take him. Venzenkov. Maybe they'll take him. And they have, all of these teams have international scouting departments. So I think you formulate it around who's going to be the centerpiece of it. Rondé has to be included. But from the conversation we had earlier, I don't think he's a guy that you need to pay because he was known for his defense as a small forward. He's not known for his defense against these stretch fours. He can't stop any of them. No disrespect, but he can't stop any of them. We saw that last year. Maybe he will this year, but I think Rondé has to be the centerpiece along with one of our #1 picks. And then who do you throw in to make the money match? Do you throw in Damari to make it match? Sure. Now, as much as I said I expect Allen Crabbe to be our MVP, you know why I would include Allen Crabbe in the trade instead of Damari? Because if you include, that is correct. You include him, you can get 3 max guys.
Yeah.
Now you wouldn't be able to pay them all max money, but guys would talk and say, okay, look, I'm gonna take this much, I'm gonna take this much, I'm gonna take this much, and now you got 3 guys playing with each other rather than 2. So I think either Damari or Crabbe. Rondé is the centerpiece. One of the #1 pick, whether it be Denver's pick, or if they're him and hawing over Denver's pick or our pick, okay, give him our pick.
Yeah.
Because if we're saying that Jimmy Butler makes us a playoff team, okay, it's gonna be somewhere around where Denver's pick is anyway.
Exactly.
Give or take a pick or two, and throw in one of those Euro stash guys. In terms of including CLV, I would not hang up in including CLV if they're going to give us Justin Patton in return.
Yeah, something back. Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think
you give us Justin Patton back
because of his foot injury, but some of the
correct.
other pieces would be a little bit more intriguing. But yeah, no, definitely. I think it's something you have to consider. I think that's fair to say that maybe Jimmy Butler would take maybe a slight pay cut. I'd be more concerned if you could get Jimmy Butler to take one of the years off that max contract. I'd be really excited. If it was a 4-year deal and maybe not a 5-year deal or something along those lines. I think that's
I
where
agree.
That's where I think it gets a little bit nerve-wracking in terms of locking up that long-term money. But I mean, to the second part of the question, Jack, do you have anything to throw in before I move on?
No, I think that they stole the words right out of my mouth, and I think that both of those deals and everything that Jason and Zach just said is right on the money, and it'll be one that we'll see play out. Our Nets are certainly in the running, but there's plenty of other teams who are going to jump up, like I mentioned on the buzz. The Clippers seem to be the number one sort of destination. Does Thibodeau want to trade them to a rival team who will probably be competing for the playoffs, and is he going to make another team in the same conference better? I'm not sure. So I think we might see a cross-conference trade. It'll be interesting to see, but insert eyes emoji, as I like to say in the last Brooklyn Buzz pod.
Yeah, and I think the fact is you could throw in even the Nets could maybe add some second-round picks. We know Sean Marks has got a couple extra ones of those.
True.
And then, Jason brought up taking less money. Playing in Brooklyn, playing in New York, your endorsement deals, Jimmy Butler's already a very popular player. Playing in the city, your endorsement deals are probably going to times by 2.
Absolutely.
Going from Minnesota to Brooklyn is a big jump. So that's a big thing to consider. But if the Nets were to acquire Jimmy Butler and, he committed to, long-term commitment with the Nets and re-signing in the offseason, do you think it would guarantee they would get another star in this summer?
I wouldn't say guarantee, but it's pretty close. I think his allure to say, look, finally, Brooklyn is a star destination for all-stars to come to. That alone is the biggest thing that I'm taking out of this Jimmy Butler deal, is the fact that he wants to come to Brooklyn. No other star has even mentioned it, bar Dwight Howard, however many years ago. And we hear all this talk about, they've got good culture, they've got a great GM coaching system, they play well, they treat their guys well, yeah. But it's refreshing to hear that a big-name player wants to come to Brooklyn. And I think we have to remember, out of all of this, that's the biggest takeaway from it all, whether we get him or not, is that free agents and big players and their agents are seriously considering Brooklyn. And I think after this season, with our hopeful improvement, that's only going to go through the roof. I really hope we are able to land a second star. Everyone's saying Kyrie Irving. I wouldn't even mind, say, I don't know, Klay Thompson or something along those lines. I think that Jimmy brings other players here, but I wouldn't call it a guarantee, but it's pretty damn close.
What do you think, Jason? Jimmy comes here and commits to the Nets, another star coming along?
Yeah, I think at least one. I have another slight disagreement with Zach on this. I don't think it's enough that he wants to come here. I don't think that's enough because for a lot of people, there are a lot of girls that you almost dated. The saying is, I don't know what the Australian saying is, but almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
I say as well in horseshoes as well.
Okay. Yeah. Horseshoes and hand grenades.
Horseshoes, and then I think you could probably also count it in darts and archery as well. If you want.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Put them in there.
You get close to the bullseye. That's not enough for me. I think that's why I say if Crab is included, yeah, because you don't know who wants to pair up with who. Like people say, you think back years ago, nobody thought LeBron, Wade, and Bosh were going to pair up together. Nobody thought that. Last year, nobody thought it would be the OKC trio, even though Marshmallow didn't pan out with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Nobody even thought Chris Paul was going to go, that he would go to Houston. So we really don't know what the pairings are, and we shouldn't, So if Jimmy Butler is the lead person, you think about it. Kyrie, it would not surprise me if Kyrie grew up a Nets fan because Kyrie's from Jersey.
Rumor is he was a big Nets fan and Jason Kidd fan.
Right. So there you go. And you know what? Now we're not going to get him, but Karl Anthony Towns grew up a Nets fan. So you don't know who's coming with who. So I think if we got Jimmy Butler, I don't think Kyrie is out of the realm of possibility. Although his injuries have always scared me. I think Kawhi could be a possibility, and I would not discount and discredit. And I may be going out on a limb here. I would not discount and discredit if 3 of these guys have said, listen, if we can get to play together, let's do it. And I'm going to tell you who I think the third guy would be. If we got Jimmy Butler and Kyrie agreed to come here, I think the third guy who would come, I think Kevin Durant would be the third guy.
Yikes.
They just went on vacation together.
Yeah.
Kyrie and Kevin Durant were just on vacation together.
Oh, that gets me excited just thinking about it.
They were just on vacation together in the Bahamas, and this is less than a few weeks ago. So we don't know what the pairings could be, but I think Jimmy Butler would bring at least one or two other guys with him.
Yeah, I think we'll be competing with the Knicks for it. That's the thing. Like, does the allure of MSG, beat out Barclays and Flatbush? I mean,
what allure?
I mean, as much as I've been to both. I'm sure Zach has seen a couple of games as well, but there's something about the aura of MSG as an arena. Now, I was going for the Houston Rockets, and they did win against the Knicks that game, so I was for that night a Rockets fan. But I think Barclays and what we're building with Sean Marks and Coach Kenny, I think that probably is the big sell right now. If we're talking about faces of the franchise and MVPs, all this sort of thing, I think our front office and our culture is that number one thing above everything else. So we shall see what happens next going forward. But the Nets have put themselves in a very, enviable position, heading into the offseason, and even in the offseason right now. It's been a year and a half, 2 years since Sean Marks took over, and we're already in the realms of landing these top free agents. Bye-bye, Billy King. In Marks we trust, as they say.
Yeah, it is remarkable. Just like these things would seem like a fairy tale a year ago, and now it's actual possibility to get
remarkable.
Yes, I was gonna say, I was waiting for it.
But we'll see what happens with the Jimmy Butler trade and whatnot. There's no guarantee he'll go anywhere. Minnesota will trade him. But a fun question to end it all today: who is the best dressed Net?
It's got to be Senior Swag Daddy.
D'Lo literally posted an Instagram post to him the other day. Like I think it was a story of him coming in like an all orange tracksuit.
Yeah, that was funny.
I haven't worn orange since I was about 11 years old. Only Damari Carroll can pull it off, and I'm all with it. And I think at Summer League as well, he was rocking the Gucci sweatpants as well. I'm all about it, but yeah, I'll be interested to hear what Jason's takes are.
I really don't know, and I'm going to tell you why I don't know. I don't like Damari Carroll's fashion sense at all. Man, the guy wears high waters everywhere, capri pants. Man, he wears fanny packs. I'm like, come on, man. I can't give you best dressed and I see you wearing capri pants. And I love Damari, though. As a guy, I love that guy. He's very personable, great family and everything. I'm talking about off the court. I love that guy. Yeah. Best dressed, I don't know, man. Only person I thought about was Coach K, man. I mean, Coach Atkinson, man.
Yeah,
Coach Atkinson, man. He comes suited, man. And when he's not suited, he's dressed like a coach in sweats and a shirt.
Always
in a polo shirt. Right. Yep. I think Coach Atkinson is the best dressed, even though he's not one of the players. But no, man, I don't like the way Damari dresses at all, man. I don't.
I'm going D'Lo. D'Lo's my boy. I think I said this on one of the earlier buzzers. I'm all about the sunglasses he wears. It was at Fashion Week. I think he won an award for his fashion from like People's Choice or something in New York. And I'm all about the diamond studs. He's a stud himself. He might as well. He's got the hat range with New Era. D'Angelo Russell is a very handsome man. He makes it work, and he's just got everything. He's got that. He's Swag Junior. If we want to give him some crappy little nickname that I came up with on the spot.
He's like, thanks, Jack. No, but enough about best dressed. Before we get out of here, guys, any last thoughts you want to get out there, Jason or Zach?
I'm going to say really quickly about circling quickly back to Jimmy Butler. Do we think that of the three destinations or a fourth somewhere else that we have the best chances of landing him? bit of a question out for all of you guys.
Yeah. Well, Nick, what do you think?
Jack and I are going to release a show that kind of discusses that. I don't think the Nets have the best chance because I don't think they're super motivated to be like, oh, we're going to go out and make a move. I think the Clippers, being one of the teams on the list, are a little bit less patient than the Nets, and I think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive. I wouldn't be surprised if the Nets landed him, but I think the Clippers probably are going to be the most aggressive out of three. And I think reports just came out recently that there's going to be a lot of teams that aren't on the list that are going to try to pull a Paul George OKC situation and try to convince him and get him for 1 year and then try to convince him when he's there.
Yeah, for sure. Fair enough.
I guess something completely different for me, man. I wish every Nets fan that listens to this be a little bit more optimistic, man, about the team, man. Goodness, it's been bad days, but
we're just used to the bad days.
Yeah, I say that, but for a lot of people, and Zach is somewhere in this, and Zach, it's not a knock against you. A lot of people who are the since day one Brooklyn fans, man, I sat through 12 wins in Jersey, man.
Yeah, me too.
we haven't been this bad in Brooklyn. So, and if you look at all of the moves that Sean Marks has made, he's taken a bare cupboard and he's actually put some groceries in the refrigerator.
He's feeding the family.
Right. Now, we may not be 5-star dining right now, but you look at what we were before, where our most tradable asset was a hurt Brook Lopez. And look what he's turned these things into. He's turned Kevin Garnett into Thaddeus Young, who flipped that into Karis LeVert. I mean, and so many other trades that I could run down, but be a little bit more optimistic. And I'm not saying be delusional like some teams fans are and who always think they team of championship contenders, but be
like
more
the other team in New York.
Man, listen, those Knicks fans are the worst, man. Goodness. They think they're going to make the playoffs with Porzingis not playing.
Yeah, I don't get
it. Be optimistic and support your team, man. Come to a game. Heck, my children come with me to the game. I say if they don't come, we see each other at a game. Let's get a drink, man.
Love it.
For sure. Jason, and if we're ever at the same game, I'm sure we'll be in touch. Definitely hit you up. But Zach and Jason, man, big thanks to you guys coming on. We'd love to have you on again. Any fans that want to hop on, we're going to try to at least do this, maybe not every month, but every other month or something along those lines. You guys were great. If you want to tell the listeners where they can find you on Twitter if they want to interact?
Yeah, ZMurph_ at Twitter. Zach Murphy, tweeting all about the Nets. That's all I do.
Love it.
I'm Jay from BK. The letter J from the word from BK, Brooklyn, because I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised. Still got a house there, so technically I'm still there. J from BK. And another funny thing about Twitter, I get so many Cubs fans who tweet me because they think I'm Jason Heyward that plays for them. And it's funny to me, man, because I keep telling them that I'm not him, but they keep tweeting me Cubs things, and I'm a Mets fan, so
leave me alone.
Nah, they'll have to leave me alone because I'm gonna keep telling them I'm not him. But if you want to tweet me, I'll play along.
All right, big thanks to you guys as always, Jack. A pleasure to talk hoops with you. And like I said earlier in the show, you can check us out on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, NetsRepublic.com, Dash Radio, and YouTube.